Okay, I have this giant stack of stamp sketches that I've done in previous videos. Just found them, and I thought that scenic lighting was important enough to make another accompanying video for the Stampscapes University series of videos. And I won't go into every one of these, but we can look at some different scenarios, and we can kind of really refine our eye for how we can light certain types of compositions. Okay, now there's not just one way to do these, and there's not just one way to tone these in terms of media, but all of these different lighting concepts can be applied to any type of surface that could be matte, glossy, I don't know, different types of papers, metallics perhaps, different media, chalks, pastels, etc. Doesn't really matter. But again, we're going to keep this really quite simple. I'm just going to be working in grayscale on these, what I call stamp sketches. They're just kind of layouts that I've done over the years. I don't even remember what videos these ones were for, but let's just start off here. I've already kind of explained lighting in my previous video, but let's just take a look here and let's see how quickly those some different scenarios can be applied. Okay, so we have sky, grass, and water right here. Three kind of different zones, and I mean I have this little structure up here too that can be lit. All right, so just in general, I like to have my sky and water pretty related in terms of lighting, okay? Alright, so just going on here again with the London fog, gray, okay? Now you can do this in graphite if you want to, if you're working on a matte piece of paper, okay? But just in general, we're keeping it kind of lighter in an area in the sky, okay? Something like that. You can see where I put a few little streaks across in there. This is a little bit darker than London fog. There was some black in my tip here before I started, but I figured since I'm going monochromatic, that's fine. Now see, if I'm doing this type of thing in lighter tones, like light blue or something like that up there, I can do the same type of thing. It just won't get as dark so fast, okay? Alright, so in my grassy area, we're retaining some areas of light as well. Okay. We get something like this. So there's darks and light ups in the sky, darks and light in the meadow, and we'll keep some darks and lights in the water. I like to kind of break things up a little bit with some of those little streaks, striations in sky, land, and, water. Sometimes they're in objects too, like wooden paneled things or something. There might be some little streaks going across like that in the wood grain. Okay, so that's it right there. Alright, now let's make it a little bit darker. Okay, let's move into the Marby gray, and we're going to retain some of those lighter areas. Just don't tone them all out. You can put a little bit of shadows at the base of some of these trees if you want to. Okay. Like that. And let's go with the black. And again, if I were to do these in blue tones, light greens, and things like that, it wouldn't be this dark, but we're just starting off with darker tones to begin with. So things don't have to look like this kind of twilight or sunset, sunrise, sunset type of scenarios. But doing it in the grayscale like this, it's just easy for me to demonstrate kind of the variation that we're establishing in each zone, sky, land, and water in this case. Alright, so you can see that right there. See how it oscillates? We're going from dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. So basically, there's a little bit of light in the middle of that sky, darker on the edge, light in the middle of the meadow, darker on the edge, Light in the middle of the water, darker in the edge. Just don't tone everything out. And you have your lighting. You'll get your coloring and lighting down at the same time, okay? Alright, let me put a little bit on this tone around this little cabin. I'll put a little bit of a shadow at the base, but see that light coming from above and hitting that rooftop? So even in the tiniest of little zones or space, we can create variations in light, like that cabin. Okay, now in the design itself, I do have some darks and lights in the cabin, and you can just follow that lighting convention that I've already established in the design. Okay, adding a little bit more deeper shadows around the base of some of these trees, like that. See, it kind of casts their shadow down there. All right. 3 zones. 3 zones of light. And it's not really light, it's just lighter than other areas within those same zones, okay? All right, so there we have our scenic lighting for kind of a meadow and a cabin on the meadow next to a pond scenario. Very quick, very fun. All right, let's take a look at this one right here. What do we have? We have sky and water down here. But do you see where there's these little white caps on here, or the spindrift coming off the top of the waves? Let's show you how to address that, okay? All right, I'm not going to bother cleaning this off. I'm just going to go with a straight pad directly into my gray again, okay? If you want to see what it looks like done with a like a paper towel. You see, this towel's getting pretty ratty, but I used it already for something else, another scene. Okay. Remember, paper towel is somewhat absorbent, so get it kind of really inked up, you know. Otherwise, it'll have a real dry brush kind of a feeling when you're applying it. Okay, it's almost like a finger painting. But do you see where I'll try to keep within the shadows of this Seaside Cove stamp that was used in here. Yeah, this one's the large Seaside Cove, so I think this is a demonstration on how to use the Seaside Cove stamp, the larger version, but just kind of breaking it up into smaller sections for whatever use you might have for it. All right, so lighting in the middle, right there, right? Okay, let's establish the same type of lighting scenario in the sky. We don't have to do too much. It's really coming together very quickly. And like I said, I mean, we could be doing this in yellows, oranges, and reds. You would just, you know, with gray, you're just doing it in one color, you know. But you can work all these other tones out with into whatever kind of color scheme you want. Would be a nice one to do a sunset scenario with this, huh? Tropical sunrise or sunset. All right. Not everything is toned out in the sky. We have areas right here that are light, and the design itself has darker areas in here, and I've just gone in and I've reinforced that idea of lighting with the gray ink or just darker inks. You can come into it with your markers if you want to get right underneath some of these waves and, you know, give it a deeper shadow area and more precise. You know, pens are perfect for that because they're, you know, they have that little tip there, so create deeper shadows right in here, this island. Okay, I think you get the point. Retain some of those areas that are light within the design itself because it's in the design itself. Pretty fast, huh? Okay, let's take a look at this one. Oh, here's that Seaside Cove again. This with the Lakeside Cove here, so you can really kind of change the spirit of your surface area by incorporating designs like this into things like lakes. Gives it kind of a windier type of a look, doesn't it? All right, now this one we're working around a little figure like this, and I have a video that I call spotlighting, and it's how we kind of bring attention to little figures in our scenes. It could be wildlife, but especially if it's people, it's good to kind of bring a little bit of emphasis to those people because they're going to be your focal points anyway. Anytime you have some kind of living thing in a scene, and the closer we're related to it, the more kind of it attracts our eye. Okay, now watch this on my rocks up here. I'll leave some of those rocks a little bit light. Okay, I'm just using the paper towel. Okay, so I'm going to kind of spotlight that person by adding tone around them. Okay. But I'll leave the area where they're at largely unchanged by ink. Additional tone. Okay, let's go to the gray from Marvy. Marvy gray is a little bit darker than the Memento London Fog Gray. Okay, but as you move up through your values, retain your lights. Don't lose your light when you move up into the darker tones. I mean, there might be kind of the encroachment of shading and whatnot, but, you know, kind of just be mindful of it and try to retain those lighter areas. It's easy to kind of fill it in, you know, like, oops, you know, I went all the way across it. Create a little bit of shadow at the base of the kayaker there. So there's kind of areas of light being established. Sky, even though it's a very thin area, has darks and lights. Our water area has darks and lights. And down in here, again, kind of hit some of these areas in here. Let me hit it with more black. Go a little bit darker here. Down my shadows. Okay. At the base of the rocks. Alright. Kind of the darker you take some of those areas, the more emphasis you can bring to those spotlit areas. And you're not putting light into it, creating a spotlight. You're just kind of creating the darkness around those people and leaving those areas by those figures or objects light, and it looks like they're standing out in the light. That. Okay, and this one's done right here. But you see those variations on those rocks too? But look at that little character in the water, how much they stand out now from the background. Okay, let's see, these two are fairly similar to the last one. Well, let's go ahead and do it. These are going really fast. Alright, so we have our cabin here, sky, water, okay? But look at this right here. See this little area in here where there's this separation right here? Sometimes I like to have it where the light is kind of making its way through that. There's this separation right here of objects. So let's show kind of the difference between kind of these scenarios right here and this one right here. Okay, so watch how fast we can kind of depict lighting, okay? So this right here, I'll go up to about right here, but I'll leave this kind of area here where light is kind of coming into the this little inlet or whatnot. Okay. Let's see, kind of have light coming across this way. Okay, you kind of see that lighting in here, kind of making its way through this little area. Let's bring it out a little bit more by going darker. Alright, there we have that light kind of making its way through that opening there, like that. We have that little area of illumination down here, keeping some of those waves lighter. Okay. I don't need to do this one. This one's similar. Okay, light would be coming maybe through here, type of thing. Alright, let's take a look at this, this meadow here with the chapel. Sky, land area, foreground. Okay. You can put other types of things in that sky too. You know, a moon up there would be great, or a sun, or cloud, or anything like that. I don't know what lesson this one was used for. It might have been on the a specific stamp, like the Sedge cluster or something like that. Or was this one on maybe a set? Maybe it's like nature set number 10 or something like that, with the country chapel small. Okay, but anyways, I'm leaving some areas light in my meadow, in my sky, and in my water. Okay? So we're getting some color into them, or tone in this case. But we're also retaining our lighting, okay? There's no set area where you have to retain light, like, okay, this one the lighting is going to be here. Or this one, oh, where's the lighting supposed to be, you know? Oh, I messed up. I was supposed to leave that piece of grass, you know, lighter. It's not like that. It's just you want to retain some areas of light and dark within each space. And where you do that, it doesn't really matter. It'll read as lighting wherever you do it. I do tend to add, you know, little shadows underneath things like trees or at kind of the base of the structures. Okay, I can add a little tone to the side of my structure because that is in the design itself. There's some shadows that I draw into my structures. I want all my structures to read as volumes, not kind of outlines, okay? So the more dot patterns you have in dot designs, that means more detail and volume you have. The more kind of outline-y a design is, it doesn't read as kind of visual weight. But, I mean, you can give them visual weight, you just have to add it in yourself. I want mass, and if something is supposed to be kind of sitting in something, you know, I draw it into the designs themselves to have inherent lighting and visual weight. So, that being said, when you're doing tones like this, you just kind of follow that kind of convention. See, I even have some, in these little tufts right here of grass, I even put little shadows and light and darkness in them. See, we can kind of add some more shadows in here as well. So you just reiterate what I'm already establishing when doing the designs. It just takes out, you know, a lot of the guesswork out of it. But, that being said, it's also all the designs are drawn so that there's plenty of variation. You know, we don't want everything set. We want you to be able to establish your lighting wherever you want it to be. So I add the shadows dark enough to where, you know, it kind of gives people a head start, but doesn't lock them into a given type of lighting scheme or scenario. All right, a couple different shades of gray in there, going into those little tufts of grass. But look at this right here. I have a little bit of line right here, so it's not just one wide open kind of area of light. We have shadows coming in here periodically, but basically there's an area of light, an area of light up here, divided by darkness. And that's in my easy scene lighting video that I've done in the past. Okay, so here's an area like this with just, we don't have a focal point like a chapel or a structure or something like that, or even like an animal. All right, this was just kind of an example of how to use probably, you know, just different stamps out of that set, I'm guessing. But let's go in here and let's just, this thing's really starting to fray. My paper towel's kind of falling apart. It's not too bad for, I don't know, toning, I don't know how many scenes this has been, quite a few. But let's create some kind of lights and darks throughout this meadow here. There's not a lot of room to do this in, so we won't go crazy, you know, with oscillations of light and dark, but we can do it enough to where it's nice and varied and rich from a value standpoint. It's not just like one value of green or something like that, or gray going across the area. I say green because if we were doing this in color, chances are there's a pretty strong probability that people would do this meadow as green. For me in California, it would be perfectly suitable to do something very, in a very realistic sense, and doing it in brown, you know, where there was green grass for 2 weeks, you know, or something like that. All right, but you see that kind of oscillation of light and dark throughout here? So it kind of lends to a more rich surface when you utilize your tones and your coloring somewhat strategically, okay? Rather than just coloring in the whole thing, one monotone value. You can see I'm hitting the areas underneath the trees, making them a little bit darker. Alright, I took my water and I made it kind of dark. That's because those tufts of you know, the sedge cluster is right nearby. So let me try to make the corners right here a little bit darker, making this area in here seem lighter by contrast. Alright, this is getting crazy right here. Let me switch over to I need to get a new paper towel. I really smudged it up. Okay, adding a little bit more tone around the corners. Shadows. Alright. It's turned into kind of softer light to a little bit more of a dramatic light, you know, going darker like that. But you see the oscillation, light and darks throughout here. Okay, let's see if there's any other kind of scenarios here. No, here's a road. I like to leave my roads fairly light to create a visual passageway into the scene. Okay. This paper towel seems really rough. It's a different brand. I don't want to get that pattern all over. Let's see if I can do it though. I don't want this, you know, these types of lessons to be kind of brand specific in terms of, you know, something like paper towels. You know, you should try napkins or something like that. Kleenex might be a little bit too kind of soft, you know, kind of rip. Alright, so I like kind of passageways, visual lead-ins, like roads and streams and waterfalls and, you know, different water ways to lead to kind of light and illumination. So what I do is I leave the roads a little bit lighter. It's kind of weird. I'm going in with this London fog and it seems almost bluish in tint all of a sudden. Why does that look so blue? Did I? I think I put summer sky into this instead of London fog. Oh well, so be it. Summer sky is the light blue. I didn't even notice it because I had so much black in this paper towel. Before I started this video, I thought, okay, I'm going to need a nice wet pad here, so, you know, I didn't want to have to re-ink during the process, so, I don't know. I made a mistake. It'll be fine, though. I'm doing cool grays instead of gray, neutral gray. Okay, so there's my road. I get some color into it because I don't want it just stark, you know, white. Okay. Okay, so remember, up in the sky, retain some areas of light. Okay, then I'm doing the gray right now from Marvy. You see that kind of visual kind of lead-in starting to become a little bit stronger now? You know, with this darker color, it's focusing more of the attention into that road. Okay. Can't believe I re-inked with that summer sky. I think that's what I did. I've been doing a lot of videos, so I don't know. Which should mean that I'm, you know, well attuned, not kind of spaced out here. All right. Black. Okay. All right. You see that kind of visual lead-in? It's perfect to put someone down on here or some kind of object on that trail, road, dirt road. Okay, kind of adding a little bit more shading around the base of the trees here. Okay, right and left corners, maybe. All right, there you have it. A nice visual lead-in in a bluish gray tint. All right. Okay, let's see here. Let's take a look at some other types of scenarios here. Another thing like that. There's your moon right there. Let's take a look at that one. Here's the flowers and bridge stamp. Open waters right here. There's let's maybe do something with that. Oh, here's a situation where I have the sun, not in the sky, but it's reflected in the water for kind of a dramatic effect. Let's do something with that. Here's another scenario right here too with the visual lead-in right here. This is set number 10 that all these pieces were kind of based on. Okay, let's do something right here. Let's see what this one would look like, okay? With this sun right here in the water here, okay? So that normally would be kind of a scenario where you have that sun in the sky, right? But now, the way that this image is composed, we have the sun in the water. Okay, but let's still go with that same type of principle where we are leaving some areas light in each areas, meaning that meadow, the grassy area, the water area. But the water area is to very much enhance the image of the reflected sun, okay? So bringing up some tone around that sun, but I don't want to darken it in too much, though. Okay. Okay, so there we have that. It's almost done here. It's pretty fast. Alright, see how that's really kind of reflecting out of that? Alright, let's go to black here. Okay. See how that sun's really starting to kind of illuminate. There's a little touch of little shoreline right here in the foreground. It's really tiny, but I'll leave some of that illuminated. So as small a piece as that might be, there's still a little bit of light and dark right here, okay? So anyways, you see that kind of situation like that. It's really fun to put our lighting schemes, our sky figures in water to create that reflected type of scenario. It's really a fun thing to do. Okay, turbulent seas. Let's see how this one will go. Okay. Going back in the blue-gray up there. Okay. Let's bring a little emphasis to that boat. Maybe making the area a little bit light behind the boat, or the boat is kind of being spotlit a little bit like that. Alright, so in water, this one's turbulent water, so let's really kind of oscillate things a little bit in terms of our lighting, depiction of lighting. This is a scenario here that would be great to just use that Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white splatter painting technique all over this bottom portion right here, where you have these crashing rocks. Crashing and splashing waves on rocks, rather. Okay. Well, let me see. I need to make sure my son is doing something. Okay, back. Make sure my son was logging into a Zoom meeting. Never even heard about that type of thing before, but in this day of isolation, he was saying, man, if that's a publicly shared company, they must have gone up like, 1,000% in this last couple weeks. Okay, so see right here, I'm retaining some areas of light within those waves so that they're reflecting some of that light, A lot of turbulent kind of ocean waves, it's just like a gigantic fabric of kind of reflected light, or light reflecting in different ways depending on kind of the angle of the wave and whatnot. It's not like a blue crystalline kind of Caribbean ocean. In this case, it's probably getting a little bit darker. It's almost like a great kind of fabric of, it's like a black glass or something like that, when you look at the ocean at certain times. But very reflective at the same time, kind of like obsidian or something like that. Okay, let's see here. Anyways, that kind of gets it down. See those areas of light and dark within there? Just don't tone everything up. But see, I do have areas that are darker in the image, and I've gone in there and I've just reiterated it with a little bit more tone like that. Does it seem like that? Easy way to do it is to take your pens again, okay? So you can go in here and get underneath some of these waves. That's really hard to get, real specific with, kind of a wider sponge tip. I'm just going in here and kind of adding some of this additional tone like that. Okay? And then what I do is I take a blender pen, or just a lighter version, and I blend those darker touches in a little bit. It doesn't blend as well as on, certain types of papers, but it blends enough to me. I just kind of keep going over it, and it eventually, the other pen or blender pen will kind of dissolve that ink that you applied, and you can kind of move it around a little bit and kind of spread it in the direction that you want it to go in, or dilute it to a degree that you want. Okay, it does soak into the paper a little bit, but you can mix and blend on glossy, from what I've found. Some people say you can't. Maybe that's the case for them, but I don't know. All I can say is it blends, for me, reasonably well, okay? I get what they say, though. It does soak in there pretty good. But then, after I do that type of thing, I often come in here with some additional white pigment ink, and I do that little frosty kind of mist, which will look perfect in here. And then I would also add a ton of splashing down here. Maybe that's what we'll do in another video. In the future, we'll show you how you can finish these ones off, or we'll color tint them as well. Okay, so anyway, okay, here's a real fast one. We have this real definitive lighting scheme in the scene. Well, not lighting scheme, but a light object in here. So when you have kind of obvious light sources like this, you just kind of color in around them. Now here, I'm not coloring out all my clouds. I'm leaving some of those clouds light because clouds reflect a lot of light, right? Okay, so see that? There's my gray. See how that transitions and kind of gets a little bit softer around the moon, and just coming right down here, I'll just kind of leave this passageway of reflected lighting on the water, okay? This is a real easy one, real fun one, I think very dynamic in many ways. When you have light sources like that, could be a lightning bolt or something like that. I love kind of light sources above water, because I love that kind of reflection of the light or light object in the water itself. Okay, see that right there? I put some tone in there, but Let's see what it looks like when I put the black now, okay? I'll kind of keep the black a little bit more on the perimeter. Okay, I won't go in as far as I did with the gray. Okay, see that? It's just on one side. And if I make this kind of dark on this side, that'll really bring out the lighting on that water, right? One step darker on the perimeter. One step darker on the perimeter makes it one step lighter in the lights, okay? I like to give my horizon lines a little bit more tone like this to create a separation between land and sky. Okay. I got lighting on the water, that oscillation of light and dark throughout there. Kind of a stronger horizon. Let's make the area, the top left and right corner, a little bit stronger to match that horizon value, horizon line value. Alright, so there you have it. I mean, that comes together in what, I don't know, I haven't been timing these or anything, but it's like 1 or 2 minutes or something like that. It's not too long, so you can really establish your lighting schemes really easy. Look at this really kind of dense, filled little kind of scenario with this, the two people out walking. Here's kind of a moon on the road. Okay, let's take a look at this one right here. This is a scene that gets really quite busy. You know, it's very densely packed, but let's kind of mellow things out and give it a little bit of a kind of a lighting direction, okay? And that should bring a lot of continuity to the scene and focus. Okay, so we have our two figures down there. We definitely want those to be in the light. They're kind of the focal points, the natural focal points of the scene. And kind of adding some shadows at the base of some of these trees, a little bit stronger shadows. Okay, coming out like that. I'll blend them in a little bit more though too. Okay, going to black. All right, there we have that. Look at that. Taking a walk through the forest. All right, let me do one more. These are a lot of fun. I certainly enjoy doing this toning and kind of establishing of the light. It's really, this is where a lot of the mood and emotion depiction comes into play. I love watching that develop. And I mean, in these cases, they're developing in like, I don't know, like a minute or something like that. So what is it? Let me see right here. 4:43. That's when I'm shooting this video. Let me see how fast this is, really. Okay. So there's our moon up there. If you did this in sunset colors, you can also have that as a sun. Okay. When there's no defining like craters or something like that, and you know that type of object, you can easily use it as a sun. This one's the Eerie moon. That's what it's called. There's another one called hot sun, and they can be used for either, you know, moon or sun. Okay, so there's our road. We're going to keep that fairly light. Okay, I can come into it with some of these lighter tones, though. Okay. I don't like it stark white, so I do like to bring in some tone into these areas with my lighter colors, with my lighter kind of base coats. Alright, now let's move it on up to gray. Okay, the Marvy gray. Kind of, you know, retaining some of those light areas again. Alright. Okay, see how it's kind of shining right on the individual. Let's go to black here. Alright, I think that is it. Let's get a little tone at the base of this cabin here. Maybe underneath the eaves on the cabin. Side of the cabin kind of facing away from the moon. Let's put a little bit of shadows up on the top of the roof, maybe cast by those trees. There's all kinds of different things you can do or not do. I can add a little bit of shade for the old man and dog. Okay, see that right there? We have our nice lighting scheme. Maybe put a little bit more tone underneath that moon, just to bring emphasis to the moon itself. Okay, there we go. Light, dark, light. With the cabin in there, and of course our little person, but Again, okay, oh, that was 4:43. So like 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, and for a pretty full, and complete lighting scenario. I don't know let's see how many of these we did here. Just in not too long of, span of time. But, I mean, I did a ton of these, though, so let's take a look here. Different compositional schemes, and arrangements, and scenarios. Kind of visual lead-ins right here on the roads. Open meadow types of things, but, kind of variations within that space, creating a little bit more depth in the entirety. Country chapel, passageways of light between objects like that. I mean, I could have had the light over here too, and we could have come a little bit this way, but I don't know, this was a little bit lower, so I kind of went that way. But see this shadow right here that I've created right in here? How it really kind of defines that lighting coming in from that angle. Okay, so spotlighting. That's like I got a smudge right there somehow. But anyways, spotlighting of a little character down there. Oh my gosh, there's 2 more of these. So, I don't know, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 pieces, completely spotlit, toned, shadows established, everything like that. And like I said, this is just a grayscale type of application of lighting, and I mean, we can certainly apply color to these in a tinted type of thing. The mood kind of is already set by the grayscale applications of color here, but this is the same type of thing that you would be doing if you're working through a lot of different colors, like, variations of blue, green, brown, whatever. You just kind of work it through those lighter tones. And then as you move into those darker tones, you just retain these light areas in all of your different areas. So, and this one right here, sky, grass, and water. There's light areas in each one of those areas. Okay? Even on something like this. This is kind of like foreground down here, right? And this is kind of background. It's kind of connected here in the meadow, but there's lit areas up here and a little bit of shadow. Light and dark in here. Light and dark in here. And even on this tiny little bit of foreground grass down here, I have an area of dark and light right in that tiny little space there. So the sky too, dark and light, kind of right up there in that sky, right? So you just kind of oscillate things. Just in this area right here, it's kind of hard to see, but that it's kind of open sky maybe back in here, so we have darks and lights in that little tiny peekaboo part of the sky. Darks and lights down here in our meadow. Okay, so this is like an example of easy lighting. There's light right there. It's like the size of a nickel. And then we have an area of light down here, okay? This one just happens to be really small, so you can kind of flip-flop things like this. And this one right here, there's a bigger area of light down here, and a smaller area of light right up there. Well, I guess that was the same thing, but sometimes here, let me try to find one where it's kind of more lit in the sky. I don't know, maybe like something like this right here, and there's just this little area of light down here. I don't know, that one's kind of similar, but I don't know, you can flip-flop them around. You can have light on the left side, sky, right side, ground, vice versa, small up here, big down here, big up here, and small down here. Yeah, there's all kinds of different things you can do. The biggest thing is that you just kind of oscillate it, And here's my rocks in here. We have sky, water, in the foreground, but even on those rocks right here, you just leave a little bit of area of light like that. And doesn't that kind of add to the overall lighting scheme rather than having all of that uniformly kind of addressed? Now you have lighting hitting those areas. Okay, so it just means that you leave some areas Yeah, it doesn't have to be untouched, but maybe just touch with the lightest of colors or something like that, or a very light stroke, a dry brush version of it in those given areas, and then you'll achieve easy scenic lighting in a very easy process. Okay, so hope this one came in handy for you. I certainly had a great time doing this one. As always, with the monochromatics, it's an easy way to do it. It's always something that I'd recommend you do. And I've tried to recommend to people, but a lot of times people just don't want to do kind of grayscale things. But I can't tell you how sharpened your sensibilities will be for lighting by doing this type of exercise right here. Then when you go back to your color work, it's like everyone, the people that do this kind of improve so much exponentially because of their sensitivity towards the retention of light. It's just very apparent when you're working like in two different tones, gray and black or something like that. It's just very apparent, the things that are lit and not, without having to think about color, temperature, and intensity, when it comes to color schemes or something like that. Okay, so anyways, thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section.